to Blockchain Fresh MD, where wellness and digital meet. I'm Dr. Faith Whittier, and I am so excited to have our guest here today, Bud Zborowski, who brings a wealth of experience in the healthcare IT blockchain space, in business strategy, execution, project management. So we are really fortunate to have his brain power here today. I also want to thank Patientory Association, who are building the framework around this emerging technology. And please visit them at patientoryassociation.org. So without further ado, Bud, I want to let you introduce yourself, but I want you to tell the audience, how did you get involved in blockchain and healthcare?
Sure. Well, thank you very much for asking me to sit down with you. And I have a career in healthcare. My background is really centered in bringing technology into healthcare and medicine, innovation, emerging technologies. And having a background in doing that, I also got very interested in this emerging technology called blockchain. In the past, I helped bring out MRI when that was a new technology. I was involved with the start of telemedicine when that was a starting and emerging technology market. And the next item that come along technology-wise was blockchain. And it was new enough where everyone had a different view of what it was. It was so new. So it captured my imagination because there was applications for medicine and for healthcare that was written about. And my specialty is bringing business to market and built around technology. So that's how I got engaged in it.
And what were, so those businesses that you were initially engaged in, the newness of blockchain is what brought them into this, to the conversation. But what were some of the early visions of what blockchain could bring to some of those companies that you worked with early on?
Well, the blockchain isn't that old, so things have happened quickly. 4 years ago was pretty new for blockchain and the technology of decentralized ledger. So its applications were across the spectrum of industries, one of which was healthcare, because there was an issue with privacy, security, anonymity, and trust. Blockchain is the technology of trust. And so as the internet is the internet of information or the network of information, blockchain is the technology of trust. So there was a big understanding that information and data with electronic medical records, data that's taken from devices, medical devices, applications, all have to go somewhere and have to be identified to people. And that was a natural for the qualities of blockchain or a distributed ledger. And so investigating was pretty fun. It was a lot of fun and pretty intense because everything sounds great, but the devil's in the detail, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So now that you've been in it for almost since the inception of it, and it's still, like you said, really relatively new. So you've had a chance to kind of see this thing evolve over time. But I think what I want to do really today is kind of break it down for the average listener that's kind of listening out there and wants to kind of,
Sure.
really just want to know, why do I even care to be listening right now to this conversation is really what I want to do. So,
well, here's the thing. I'd like to answer that quickly.
Yeah. Okay.
I think the importance for everyone is not understanding the back room, the technology, the gears and the levers, but understanding what does it mean to me as a person,
exactly,
as a medical professional. Because all too often when a new technology comes out, it's all consumed by how does it work? What's how does that technology work? And that's the back room. And most of the time, if I'm going to be using a technology, there's a need to just have it transparent and make it work. And that's where the interest and the excitement come
Make
into
it
play.
just do what it does for me. Like it just needs to work when I need it to work, why I need it to work. So
Exactly.
I want to talk to you because I know you've done some stuff on genomics and precision medicine, and that it still all sounds a little techy to me, and maybe still to a lot of people. Genomic medicine. I'd love for you to break that down. Is that sort of like
Sure.
this 23andMe on steroids, or I think people get 23andMe. I send in my specimen. They tell me who I'm related to, but what is genomics? What can that offer to a person, for a person?
That's a great place to start in tying this into the technology of blockchain and the individual. And it's not even genomics. It's really, I got started in it because of the emergence of precision medicine. It's fascinating to know that now we're getting medications that basically are based on groups of people, cohorts. It a drug works for, in general, for this type of person, an older person, a younger person, a male, a female. But now we're going to get to the point that it's going to be medicine and treatments that work for my genetics, me. And there's a presentation I give that it's about disruptive trends. And the title of it is It's All About Me Now. It's all about me in the future. That's where things are headed.
So are you implying with that the conversations, for example, that we've had around hydroxychloroquine, we might one day be able to say, yeah, this will work for me, but this won't work for you? That's what we're meaning by this genomic. Is that
Well,
kind of what you're
it gets to that point, and before you get there, you really have to understand that an individual is quite unique, and because of their genomics, their genomic makeup, just like 23andMe or those other direct-to-consumer genomics, they do identify who you are, where you came from,
right?
and you are unique. So when you couple that with medicine or healthcare, there's a huge possibility to do research, to identify treatments that are all geared toward not, I know this works on females, not males, or under 15 years old. I know that. But now I can say that it works in that category, but let's see how your body metabolizes
Right.
prescription.
That's specific.
And how can we focus a cancer treatment to be more effective in treating your cancer, because we know how your body and your immunology will react. And that's genomics. That's you. That's me. It's all about me.
Right.
So I collect data. I collect all type of information from apps and tests, and it all tells a practitioner, a doctor, about me. And genomics is one of those. So we can get our genomics tested now. We can get prescriptions or various types of conditions actually defined, because they know that my body will take a certain drug and I will metabolize it or use it differently. It might not have any effect. It goes straight through my system.
Right.
Or it may be retained in my system longer than it should. And in each case, the physician now can say, well, I like to prescribe this blood thinner, but now I know that if I prescribe this type of blood thinner, knowing your genomic makeup, that you're going to hold it or metabolize it slower. So I don't want to give you a larger dose than I need to.
Right.
And that's where the precision is coming in for precision medicine. Does that help?
Oh yeah, definitely. And that is actually going to be quite helpful. When you think about in medicine, even, for example, seizure disorders, you know, a lot of times they're, you know, trying out different medications and
Right.
having to figure out the side effects on each individual. So I think the take home here is we will have more precise information for each individual to treat them in a much safer way, if you will.
Correct.
So I think from that standpoint, I think precision medicine, genomics could be a potential gateway for this new technology. And I think you're thinking the same thing, right?
Yeah, I have to tell you, you're right on the money, because it's all precision medicine. The common denominator, or its underpinning, is genomics, and genomics is a fairly undeveloped marketplace. It's very siloed. There's the genomic pool out there now for research for drugs and treatments has a history of being 96% European descent genomics.
Yeah. So
well, for a reason, that's what it was. Now we're realizing that we can be even better. What about the Indian population? What about the African American? What about the Hispanic? And some drugs and treatments do have a different result because of the ethnicity. So that's a good example of how we need to have a pool of data for researchers.
Exactly.
Now, if you have the pool of data for researchers, where do they get that? Right now, it's siloed. It's very self-contained by these big research houses that do a good job at it, but it's their data. What if they can now open up the gates and say, I would like to include other genomic types? So my research, when I do need a cross-section of ethnicity, can allow for that type of studies, and I can get these discoveries out to market appropriately. So let's get to blockchain. What does blockchain do? You know, it is a platform. It allows privacy, security, anonymity, and trust. And so if I have my genomics, it's mine. I own it. And that's another big issue that's in healthcare now, is ownership, not just of genomics, but of data. We haven't gotten over the hump that the data that we have in medical records is mine. You know, I want to, you know, if I want to look at it, I want to see it. But in some kinds, you can't get it. And so there's a concept of ownership. And when you get down to genomics, I should have right to my genomic profile. So blockchain provides this type of technology security that isn't there right now. That allows for transactions, allows for trust, allows for permission to give you my information. And that's what makes this whole precision medicine bucket so exciting. There's a company called Encryption, and there's probably three or four other ones, but Encryption comes to mind. I worked with them for a while, and they actually put a marketplace together where an individual can publish or place their genomic data on top of a blockchain, the encryption. They call it a gene chain. And when I put it in there, it's safe, secure. I know it's always there. I can always get it. And then once it's populated, researchers can now go into this marketplace and say, I need this type of metadata. I need people that are in this age bracket or with this precondition. And I want to look at so they can do a search in the marketplace and find my genes are, for example, the ones they need. Well, because I own them, I have to give them permission if they want to use them. Then you can bring things like a token into place, a Bitcoin type of token where it actually can place value. You can store the data, you can share it with someone, you can put value to it, and you can trade it. So that is now, that's happening right now, and it's going to grow. But that's where blockchain of technology can help precision medicine, is by getting a marketplace, for example, in place. where researchers can go find the types of data they need, and individuals can store them. And if somebody wants to use my DNA, I might get value out of it, paid money. And so it's not, you're not going to become a millionaire because of your genes, but the point is there's a transaction.
It's a transaction, and it's a way of having autonomy over your genetics, like you might have over anything else. Interesting. I definitely see that being a particular gateway. Do you see it though as being still something only available to, I guess, the haves rather than the have-nots, or people that have money or resources to store their DNA on these kinds of platforms? How do we make these marketplaces, I guess, more readily accessible to the everyday person?
Well, it's happening now, and it's open across the board to anyone who has genomic data that has been defined, 23andMe, or there's a number of these organizations that will define your genomic makeup. And these blockchain-enabled marketplaces will store it for free.
Interesting.
It won't cost anything to me as a consumer, because there is a revenue mechanism where there's transactions that can be made on my data, and then there's revenue or profit made, not on me putting it into the chain, but someone making a transaction for my data and getting paid to have this marketplace in place. So it doesn't cost me anything to store it. It shouldn't, because there's value in the blockchain technology.
Excellent, excellent. So it's going to be really exciting in these next coming years to see how some of this genomics takes hold. I want to move on to some other things that may have a potential to have just as much, I guess, fascination and utility as that. Owning your medical records on the blockchain. And I didn't mention in the beginning, you and I kind of got to know each other as an ambassador on Patientory, and they are in particular involved in patients having the capability of owning their own medical records on the blockchain. And I want to make this one point because it's been really kind of on my heart and soul as we've been in the midst of this pandemic, really just thinking about all the countless people that have gone to the emergency room in dire straits, not having their records. That's a big part of what we do in medicine, taking someone's history. When did your shortness of breath start? All the things that we get from a history. And now, these poor people have shown up and basically, nothing about their history, their allergies, anything. And I wonder if this is the best use case of how great an idea it would be if we could all have our own medical records when we need them. So comment on that for me, Bud.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Patientory, because Patientory owns a unique corner in this electronic medical record and ownership of data market. Krista McFarlane, founder of the company, started encryption 4 years ago or so, maybe longer. I've been involved with them a little over 3.5 years. And it really started with the idea that there is an ownership factor of my data. And it's been tossed around in healthcare for a long time. So they really do own Patientory owns a unique little corner here that is, I think, based in mobility. So you and I have the ability to be mobile and still have access to data, or be mobile and have the ability to contribute data into my record. So I'm not necessarily have to go to a physician to get information placed into my record. I might have a Fitbit. I might have some other EKG machine or whatever it is, and that's about me. You know, see, it all comes back to me. It all comes back to data. It all comes back to ownership, safety, and convenience. From a consumer's point of view, it'll come to the point now with companies like Patientory that are able to integrate all this data. The physicians are going to be, you know, well informed now, but they won't think about who's Patientory. Can I understand how it works? They just know that it's available. The technology allows them to have secure information from this patient. Or say there's a flood, Louisiana, when they had the big flood, you know, the hospital records were destroyed. Office records were destroyed, right?
Yeah.
So go think, and it's high, and so those things are, catastrophes are real, but it pushes the envelope a little bit. So I think we're on a cusp where ownership of data is important. Insurance companies and hospitals are slowly getting around that it's my data, and it'll come full circle. But I like the idea of having that on a device, mobile device.
Yeah.
Where it's accessible. It could be any number of applications that a company like Patientory allows to happen. So good point.
Yeah, and I guess the big push from CMS and interoperability to really allow patients to have, like you said, that cell phone access for any third-party app that they may have. There's going to be a lot of, like you said, interchange of that data. So
Yeah.
Owning that data and you deciding how you want to safely secure your data on a blockchain is probably going to be something that more patients and people are going to be interested in.
Yeah, I'm sure they will.
Yeah. The last thing I want to touch on, Bud, because we're wrapping up here, but I want to know, you've done a lot of work with telemedicine, especially in Pakistan. So I want you to kind of tell us about that.
Yep.
I'm fascinated. I thought telemedicine has been a really good idea for a very long time. And I think it's with the pandemic where they kind of had some of the regulations sort of lax a little bit, patients wanting to stay home. It's sort of all this perfect storm of telemedicine to
Right.
hold. So with the work that you did in Pakistan, what are some lessons that we can learn here in the States for having some of the same success? And do you see this being a real part now of our everyday life as we move forward?
Sure. Well, the group that I'm associated with is called Medical City Online. Dr. Suhail Chital is the CEO and the really a Microsoft technology expert who has put together software that allows for the delivery of care to be done remotely, not necessarily video conferencing that's a technology, but actually integrating the needs of a physician into the technology so that it becomes second nature. So Medical City Online had an interesting opportunity to incorporate its software in this country of Pakistan during COVID-19. There was a demand for immediate involvement in helpline and assessment of the population, and especially in one of the states of Pakistan. And so the government, the medical colleges, the physicians, and private enterprise came together in Pakistan to put together a platform that is in place right now where urban and rural citizens can access through the device and get screened and also get medical attention from the best universities in the state. So that actually happened, and it happened within a very short period of time. They're still getting awards. I'm not familiar with Pakistan. I'm in the United States. Dr. Sohail is Pakistani. He's an orthopedic surgeon. And so he spent a lot of time and is very well connected with the leaders in that country. So they're getting awards on this now because they actually implemented a technology that was ready. And you connect this into this technology we're talking about, blockchain, and while it isn't incorporated in that program or in telemedicine now, it will be in the future because telemedicine does not store any of your data. It uses data and gives it back. You may not know the doctor on the other side of the call, but with blockchain, you can get a verified signature of that person's credential. So when it says he or she graduated from a university of repute, you know it because blockchain can't lie. That's new. That's credentialing, and that's happening in the United States just normally.
Yeah.
So things like this are going to be slowly engaged into remote care, and not even thinking about telemedicine as a country specific. It's going to go global. Right now, about 0 to 5% of a physician's practice revenue is remote care generated. Zero, probably more like zero. In 5 years, it's going to be 20 to 35% of that revenue generated in my medical practice will be digital. So we have to accept that, get prepared for it, and telemedicine, which is very basically delivering care remotely, will be the vehicle. So I'm excited about what can happen in incorporating a use case for blockchain in telemedicine, and we're working on that right now.
Yeah, I think there's been a shift in behavior too. I mean, when you think about all the people working from home, and even some of these major corporations will continue to keep their employees at home, and how convenient now it is for people to be able to use something like a tool like telemedicine. So I definitely think you are right on the money with that. Now, you did mention in Pakistan how they had that collective coming together, which really sort of, I think is what you're saying, was made a lot in terms of their success. What are the players would you see here that would need to come together for some same successes?
In the United States, you have payers, the insurance companies. You have the government, which has our insurance company, you know, with Medicare and that Medicaid. So you have the payers. You have the specialty medical practices, family practice, cardiology, etc. And then you have the providers, which are the hospital systems or the hospitals, and the patient. The patient now comes in the equation.
Yeah.
So during a pandemic emergency, the focus was the technology, getting it out. And now we all are accustomed to seeing a doctor on my screen versus touching them. And there's a role for both, touch type of and video. But the point being, it's coming, and we all have to prepare.
Yeah.
Physicians have to understand it, but more importantly, I have to. And so when you hear when we give demonstrations about telemedicine using Medical City Online software, and we engage somebody, they say, well, wow, I'd much rather do a visit online. I got more attention. I got more eyeballs to me. I got information that was brought on the screen and integrated. I saw my x-ray.
Yeah.
And I left and I felt, wow, first of all, I got my money's worth. Number two, I actually learned something about myself. And I'm waiting in my mailbox. I have instructions and pictures of what I need to do.
Yeah.
What a country. And so this is what's going to happen. It's going to, the physician is going to be just like dialing a phone. It's going to be second nature.
You're going to step over the side. Hey, can I step in your other room? I got to see my doctor.
Yeah.
And you can just schedule a whole lot of things on your agenda, a whole lot more things to do. But I love talking about what's coming, because I always think when you talk about what's coming, it always makes it a little less scary when it actually comes. You're ready for it. So you're right. It's coming. Let's get ready for it, and let's embrace it, because it is coming. It's nothing.
I'll give you a hint.
Yeah.
You, especially me, we won't see what really is going to happen. I wish we were both 10 years old.
Yeah, you're right.
And when we're ready to
I'm
go
only
to college,
12, but no.
okay. You almost want to be reborn at 10 years old, because you'll not only be able to use all these technologies,
Yeah.
they're going to be advanced to the point where, what's a telephone?
Yeah.
You know, like today, kids don't know what a telephone was. In the future, kids are going to say, what was a cell phone? I mean, what's a doctor's office? I don't understand. And so,
Yeah, exactly. I know.
you can't wait for that.
Oh.
And they're going to say, what's blockchain? I never heard of that before. Well, that's what's running the soil. You know, blockchain. We call it, I never knew that. We just know something's in there. So in the future, it's all going to be a beautiful world. You know, people are going to access things not according to geography or need, but it's going to be pretty ubiquitous, and we're going to be healthier, I hope, because of it.
Yeah, I do too. Well, Bud, it has been a pleasure having you on and sharing your wealth of knowledge with us. We really do appreciate that. I look forward to seeing what's to come from all of this.
Great.
So thanks so much.
I appreciate being able to share a little bit with you.
All right, Bud.